Greetings from Canada, ladies and gentlemen, and I think, good afternoon in Madrid. The pandemic has battered the global tourism industry with investment and job creation declining significantly in 2020. International arrivals in 2020 dropped by 73% from the previous year, and even more if we compare the pandemic period of March to December 2020 with the same period 2019, precipitating an estimated 1.3 trillion loss in export revenues and threatening up to 120 million direct jobs. No country was spared from this decline in tourism activity and related investment as global investors put plans on hold in 2020 following a lack of traveler confidence and evolving movement restrictions. Foreign direct investments and projects announced in tourism cluster last year declined by 63% from the record highs seen in 2019. Job creation and capital expenditure both declined by more than 70% in the same period. Ladies and gentlemen, these are very dismal numbers. Today, I am delighted to introduce to the global audience an important guest, Ms. Natalia Bayona, Director of Innovation, Education and Investments at World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, to share with us how tourism recovery through the needful policies on innovation and education and investments that she has been at the front line of. Welcome, Natalie.
Sumaira, it's my pleasure to be here with you. And of course, all my greetings from Madrid, Spain.
Thank you so much. This interview has been so much long in making, and I'm just delighted that you are here today, to share your insights on this important topic. But before we deep dive into today's pandemic and everything that it's impacting, I really want to connect with you, Natalia, on a personal level and just understand who Natalia is and what your journey has been to date, where you are today on this important role of UNWTO.
Sumaira, I love that question. So first of all, I am a Colombian full of energy. And I have to say that, of course, I love youth empowerment. I am absolutely committed on youth empowerment because I was empowered since I was very, very young. So my career, I studied international relations. I got an executive MBA from IE University. I finished my high school in the US. And I have to say that, of course, working in tourism was part of what happened to me by mistake, I have to say, because my first job was when I was 20 years old with the former president of Colombia, Álvaro Uribe, and I was in charge of changing Colombia's image abroad. So imagine the challenge that was to work with journalists, tour operators, and the private sector in order to encourage them to believe in Colombia again. So after some time, I was part of the first Colombia's country brand, and I was part of the team that created the first international country promotion strategy. I don't know if you remember, but in that time, of course, there were a lot of risks about going to Colombia. So we decided to create a very ambitious campaign that was Colombia, the only risk is wanting to stay, in order to change and to switch a little bit and going from the risk to the opportunity. I have been living in 7 countries. I lived in the US, in Colombia, in Chile, in Argentina, in Portugal, in Taiwan, and in Spain.
Wow.
And I worked in the Colombian government for 10 years. So I grew up, I did all my career in the Colombian government in ProColombia, that is the government tourism, trade, and investments bureau. And after 10 years, I jumped to an amazing venture to become the vice president of South Summit. That is one of the most important innovation forums here in the south of Europe. And after 1 year, one of my dreams came true. That was to become the first director of innovation, education, and investments of a UN agency as a youth, you know, so only with 32 years old, I think, I got empowered to become the person in charge of helping entrepreneurs to grow, to empower women, to empower youth, and to help on how investments and education can be the vehicles of tourism development.
What an incredible story. I am so inspired, and I think you are inspiring so many youth, you know, because it's the inspiration today, I think, is a medicine for the pandemic as well. It keeps us going forward. So your story is so important, and thank you so much for your amazing work that you do, because I follow you. You and I have been on a few programs together, and Pro Colombia is an agency very familiar to me. And I love Colombia. I love that country, and you know, well done, well done. What a story, what a journey, incredible. Okay, so just moving on, you know, I want to now start talking a little bit about our topic at hand. You know, the data does point to a relatively small upturn in May 2021, with arrivals declining by 82% after falling by 86% in April for international tourism. This slight upward trend, Natalia, has emerged as some destinations started to ease restrictions and consumer confidence rose slightly. Domestic tourism is coming back in many regions, including China, the US, and the EU. And the international tourism is slowly picking up. I think UK has just announced a few countries which are on the ban, you know, that they are now being allowed back, and UAE, United Arab Emirates, is one of them. I don't know if you saw this crazy campaign that you had one of the hostesses of Emirates Airline on top of the pole of Burj Khalifa. So countries are really, really trying to recover in this very fragile and uneven recovery period with the rising concerns of Delta. But I think we all have to live with this now. What is your perspective of the new tourism amid the pandemic?
That's a very important question, Sumaira. So first of all, I have to say that it depends on us. You know, tourism is the most human economic sector. So we have two ways to go. To go the way back. Mm-hmm. So of course, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it was massive tourism, full of over tourism, and full of non-sustainable way of thinking an economic sector. The other way, of course, is a more conscious tourism, is a more responsible tourism, is a new tourism model based on sustainability, on innovation, where new technologies are here for good. So to take better decisions thanks to big data analytics, to use the power of virtual reality and augmented reality to promote a different way of new destinations, to create new experiences and touristic products thanks to rural development, artisans, gastronomy, and so on. That's a way, and I think I truly believe on that way. On the way, sustainability is not only about talking about climate change. That's only one part of sustainability. Sustainability is about inclusion, about working with locals. It's about using technology for good. It's about thinking of next generations. It's about smart destinations. It's about, of course, working with the environment. So what I see today is that the pandemic helped us to open a little bit our eyes and to accelerate the challenges that were developed before the pandemic. But once again, it's in our hands what we want to do. So I have seen after the pandemic, a lot of good practices, a lot of countries that have developed their own sustainable laws, sustainable investment promotion, etc. But there are other destinations that keep doing the same thing. I'm not telling you that it's good or bad. The thing is that the consequences of what you do today and the decisions that you take today, of course, you're going to see it in the next future. For us, inside the UNWTO, we are absolutely committed that working on innovation and sustainability is the way to create a better and a more educated tourism sector. And if we want a high-level economic sector that not only helps the economy, but also helps the human capital development, is about growing through sustainability and innovation. So, of course, massive tourism is amazing, and I absolutely support that, but with a responsibility, taking care of communities, taking care of the environment, taking care of our tourism. So if we can do that and can do so, and the destinations can do a more responsible tourism branding and a more responsible tourism management, I absolutely think that we will lead by example the new way and the new touristic model. If not, of course, we will be on that status quo that I don't know if it's good or bad, but unfortunately for me, it's not sustainable.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a new way of leading, right? I mean, it has to start with the leadership. So innovation in tourism, as elsewhere, is collaborative action between governments and academia, corporations, micro, small, and medium enterprises, startups, investors. So there's a whole ecosystem and other rest of the stakeholders. So could you share with us how is innovation leading the tourism industry recovery, or is it really leading? Or is there another driving force which is contributing gradual normalization of the travel?
Of course. Innovation, of course, is here to stay, Sumaira. Remember that when internet came to our life, the only economic sector that was a good friend of technology was tourism. So thanks to that, we have experienced different revolutions. The first one was, of course, the dot-coms. So when we created the dot-coms, every single destination wanted a good website. And of course, the exposure was massively scaled up. Second of all, we began the OTAs revolution. Of course, when Expedia Orbit came into the house, of course, we were together once again in order to promote a better way of traveling, and of course, on thinking on the traveler. But the last revolution that I love the most, because it's the one that I have to lead with, is the startup revolution, is the way on how entrepreneurs, young, talented minds, using new technologies, deep technologies as artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, wearables, among others, they're working using technology in order to travel better and to take better decisions. This is very important. I remember 16 years ago when I started to work, that everything was in an Excel. So the decisions were taken by an Excel and a Microsoft Word. Today, there is no excuse to use technology, thanks to the dashboards, to create open data dashboards, to work together to collect and to create a data mining platform in order to take better decisions. We are there today. Remember that tourism, Sumaira, is the top employer of youth and women. Nonetheless, 50% of youth working in tourism only have secondary skills. So the easiest way to mind that gap is not only through education, is through entrepreneurship, to help them to improve and to create their own venture using new technologies, using new ideas, innovating, because of course, that's an added value service that corporates, governments, and of course, investors need in order to survive. So when it comes about the tourism model, I have to say that it's mandatory, first of all, of course, to change the curricula and the education strategy inside the way people are educated in tourism. But the most important thing, it doesn't matter if you are a mature destination or an emerging destination, is that you need to empower youth and to help them to create new ventures and new ways of innovating in order to create new employment opportunities in this sector.
So, so you keep referring and talking about this new way. I hear this word a number of times in your conversation just now. So, what you're saying is achieving inclusive and quality education for all reaffirms the belief that education is one of the most powerful and proven vehicles for this new type of tourism and development. And what I'm understanding is that the last revolution was, the internet, and then of course the startups and all. But this revolution, this time, is going to be different, because there's just not one way, but there's a multitude of innovative ideas and concepts which are being developed and being rolled out all simultaneously, like AI, virtual reality, all in technology mostly. And so what are the other protocols? What do we need to do for the education protocols for the new tourism?
That's very nice. I love this question because I would like to ask you something. Sumaira, what did you study?
Myself, I'm an art student, actually.
Okay, perfect. And you're working in tourism. So where are you from?
I'm actually from Pakistan, but Pakistan is Canadian, yes.
So that's very nice. So answer me something. When you were a kid, did you study tourism?
Nope.
Okay. When you came to study your bachelor's, did you study tourism?
No.
Okay. Did you do a master's?
Not in tourism, no.
Okay, perfect. So you have the answer. Every single country in the world is talking about being a tourism nation. It doesn't matter if it's a modern and a super major tourism or if they are emerging tourism. But in any single country in the world, look this powerful message that I'm telling you. In any country in the world, tourism is a mandatory skill inside your education path. So what happened? If you are, tourism is very powerful when it comes to the representation of tourism in the GDP. Nonetheless, when you come and you see people that are educated in tourism is a minority. So you cannot talk about tourism nations if you don't have, when you are a kid, you don't have any single way to study tourism. They never teach you about how to be a tourism guide and to promote your destination, the place where you were born and you were taught. Then when you become a teenager and you're trying to come into a university, you don't have any single tourism subject as a mandatory skill. They can be electives, but they are not mandatory. Then when you do a master's, it doesn't matter if it's in public administration, in business administration, in technology, you never see tourism. So how you can build a tourism nation if education is not there, telling the world and telling the society that you need to be educated in tourism. So what do we need? We need, of course, to include a new curricula. The education needs to be transformed. And of course, the education has to be transformed by creating new ways of developing tourism. to have vocational tourism, to have internships in tourism, to understand. I studied international relations, Sumaira, but I never had a subject focused on public policy in tourism. I got defense, agriculture, business, finance, whatever you want. But today, more than ever, we need to create, since the beginning of the childhood until you are mature, to understand why tourism is an economic sector and why it's mandatory to have tourism classes inside your educational path. If not, we are not doing anything. No. Because of course that won't be sustainable. So you are of course creating jobs, but those are not added value jobs. And that's why then you come and you say, why in this sector people are not educated? Why in this sector people don't have good income and good salaries? The answer is really easy, because of course it's not part of the curricula. So that's the first point. The second point is based on lifelong learning. And that's why inside the UNWTO, we decided to create the UNWTO Tourism Online Academy, because of course, it's the only way we can scale up the way people are educated. So today, what we have today, the challenge is there. 50% of youth without professional skills. So if you want to massify the way people are educated, the only way is through online education. It's easy. So inside the UNWTO, we have decided to create the online academy, the Tourism Online Academy, and it's a platform where top universities, vocational and managerial universities can upload for free top courses, certified courses by the UN, UNWTO, and a good university in order to help people to access to quality education. So as of today, Sumaira, we have more than 10,000 students from more than 150 nationalities, but we need more. We need hundreds, thousands, millions of people accessing to education in order to give them the opportunity to study with Cornell, La Roche, MIT, Harvard, IE University, INSEAD, among others. And we are partnering because we really think that that's the way, of course, to mind that a strong gap that this sector has.
That's brilliant. I didn't know about the university. That's really something of very, very important information that you are sharing with me here. I mean, wow. Oh, because you've broken it, you've unpacked it. So what you're talking about here is something really essential. I want to a little bit push you further on this. So basically what you're saying here is that we need to build the tourism education and verticals academically, starting from school courses, our school education onto your college and to university. So you could talk about a doctorate in tourism, perhaps, on the, up to that level. And that today is perhaps happening in some countries, perhaps some handful of universities, but yes, you're absolutely right. Certainly is not mainstream. So what you're trying to do is make, and your messaging is that this tourism needs to be a specialization field, just like engineering or doctorate or medical sciences or any other tool, because it is in a way a science. To be able to play host to as a host for your country needs to be done more academically driven process. It needs to be. That's incredible, Natalia. That's really, really incredible. And the UN Academy, where can people log in? Where can they find information on that?
That's very easy. You only have to go to Google. You have to put UNWTO Tourism Online Academy, and that's all.
Okay. noted here. So what, tell me, is the smart destinations and capacity building are focused on improving the sustainability, accessibility, governance, and quality of destinations through the use of new technologies and innovation, staying on technology and innovation subjects. So what do tourism stakeholders need to do to prepare for smart destinations? And how are customers absorbing the experience at these sites through practical academic programs? Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, of course. So I have to say that, of course, when it comes to smart destinations, it happens the same when you talk about sustainability. So people think that about being a smart destination is only to have Wi-Fi on the parks. And of course, that's not all about being a smart destination. Being a smart destination is working on sustainability, technology, of course, inclusion. And I have to say that something that is really important, that is ethics, because of course you are using a lot of data, you're using a lot of information. So the easiest way is to use that data for good and that information for good, not of course to send it and to promote it somewhere or to different sectors. So when it comes to smart destinations today, I have to say that one of the most trends in the tourism sector is that nowadays, when it comes to a smart destinations or smart cities, is thinking about the citizens. That's very important because, of course, before the pandemic, we had a really important way to go ahead and a really important way to start promoting tourism in different scopes and different verticals and different experiences. Nonetheless, thanks to those lockdowns, of course, that we experienced, people realized, and some of the governments realized that it doesn't matter where you are. The most important thing is to be really, 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 really committed with the citizen. So what will be the way to promote a destination that it has well-being, wellness, and of course, that has everything to promote a better tourism for all? Remember, Sumaira, that before the pandemic, there were a lot of challenges in Europe because the capital cities, the citizens were not taken into account. So what happened then? There were a lot of disturbs before the pandemic, talking about the challenging that was tourism in their lives, because of course they thought that, I give you an example, you never knew your neighbors because of course your building was full of an Airbnb system. Then when you go to you used to go to the beach, of course you had the opportunity to go and it was hyper overcrowded. Then when you used to go to the parks, they had a lot of problems in that sense. So today, what I see is that what we need to construct, of course, technology has to be there, of course, sustainability has to be there, but we need to work a little bit more on the citizens, on what they want, a place where they can ride a bike, a place where they can go into a park and nothing happens, a place where security is there for them. It doesn't matter if I am in Europe, if I am in India, if I am in Asia, if I'm in Latin America, if I'm in Canada, it doesn't matter where you are. The most important thing is that the citizens feel good and the tourists are feeling as a citizen, not as a foreign person, because of course, that's the only way to see and to feel a destination from its essence.
Okay, so it's ethics, it's basically the mental well-being of the communities that we are talking about here as well.
Absolutely. What I feel is that today we have different opportunities. Of course, we can stay where we are, but we can change. It doesn't matter what the path is. How I see the things is that, of course, the pandemic helped us to be a little bit more conscious. Mm-hmm. But as you know, Sumaira, we are short in memory, and that's the only concern that I have. Of course, today we are more conscious than ever, but maybe that won't happen in the same way maybe next year, because when people see that everything is okay, maybe they would see that we can come and go back without any problem. So I see, once again, our challenge is educating, re-educating, and sending the message once again, mm-hmm. in order, of course, to foster a better future for everyone.
Okay, that's great to hear that. Again, smart cities, I think that's really important. Again, it's also the well-being of people, it's the happiness, and the state. Also how they welcome, I think because of that the tourism into their communities, because today, there is a pushback, like there's an example of Hawaii I would like to mention here, the numbers in Hawaii are just going up right now in spite of the pandemic. The tourist arrivals are huge. The numbers of the virus are going up there. The Delta variant is rampant. So there's a real situation, and the local communities, apparently, they don't want tourism now. They don't want to see tourist arrivals coming in. And I think it's that balance that what you are talking about is for the smart cities and for the governments, and to drive home, because through that process, tourism is the cream, but they have to get the building blocks right. I think that's what is important, from healthcare to security and education and so forth and on and on. So just moving on, which is staying on the topic of investments, the multi-dimensional nature of the tourism sector, combined with the dynamics of the source of investment capital, presents a complex picture for understanding and measuring tourism investments. As reported, in Western Europe attracted the highest numbers of tourism FDI projects in 2020, with 85 announcements, and was also leading source for the region for investment, accounting for around half of projects and 5.2 billion of capital investment. COVID-19 and it's followed by Asia Pacific, with accommodation remained the largest subsector for tourism FDI, generating more than 29,000 jobs in 2020. So COVID-19 precipitated a global stalling of the tourism industry. Now, as vaccine rollouts help lockdown measures ease, investments into the tourism cluster has started to pick back up, with domestic tourism leading the recovery. What do we need to do more? What are green investments for sustainable tourism? And which areas do you think, Natalia, are the emerging markets for greenfield investment?
That's very important, and I love that question. So basically, Sumaira, I have to say that green investments, of course, first of all, we need to understand what is happening in the tourism sector. When tourism decided to drop, it didn't decide it, by the way, it was because of the pandemic. When tourism came in a very difficult situation, thanks to the pandemic, we decided to do a survey to our investment network. That is more than 200 investors that are part of the UNWTO investment network. So when we came there and we did a survey, and 50% of them told us we would like to keep investing in tourism. Nonetheless, we will do it in subsectors as climate change, governance, and social impact. And that tells you everything. So today, our priority is to promote green investments. But as you know, Sumaira, we cannot promote investments by promoting investments. A legal framework is needed in order to promote sustainable investments. Of course, to help the private sector is crucial here because, of course, we need the power of the private sector and the ones that are creating ecological capital, the ones that are developing good business structures with climate change solutions, with renewable energies, with renewable materials inside their hotels. Of course, they need a reward because, of course, it's more expensive to invest in sustainability. Nonetheless, it's a business. I have to tell you, Sumaira, that only 10 countries in the world, only 10, have a sustainable framework focused on bringing green investments. So how come we can talk about sustainability in the tourism sector if there are only 10 countries in the world that are promoting sustainable investments? So
that means those 10 countries have the correct infrastructure or framework to attract the green investment.
Of legal framework, yes. Sure. So there are Canada, Colombia, US, New Zealand, Australia, but Germany, but there are a few, there are only 10. So the world is big and huge. So if we want to lead by example, we need to create a strong legal framework focused not only on promoting investments, because of course that's obvious. What an investor wants, of course, an investor wants a legal framework, wants a stability, political commitment, and of course, a business. That's obvious, but it's not only about the tourism sector, it's about all the sectors. But then you help them and you tell them, okay, if you are creating ecological capital, social impact capital, if you're helping us to create a better hotel, not the typical tourism hotel chain, to have a better experience, to include the community, to include the artisans, to include the rural areas, I will give you some subsidies, or I will give you some tax aids, or I can help you. For example, I have seen countries where the countries give human capital development, and as you know, the investment pipeline is not a 1 year or a 6 months pipeline, at least it's a 5 years pipeline. So what governments do is, for example, okay, let's create here an amusement park, let's create here a national natural park, let's create here a hotel, whatever. But from today that you decide to create an infrastructure in tourism to the day that you launch the project that will be in 5 years, I will commit through government funds to promote and to train the future employees of your venture. In that way, you are being sustainable as a government because you are not importing talent. So you are leading and you are training your nationals in order to adapt the community into a new venture, you know. But the challenge is that we need this in a more proactive way, you know. It's not only about one shot or for one project. It has to be a law, it has to be a national public policy, it has to be a really ambitious way in order, once again, to change the way the tourism sector is investing not only in talent, but also in infrastructure.
So that's a very incredible number that you've just shared, that only 10 countries in the world today have this legal framework, Natalia. That's astounding number, you know, and Colombia is in there, so you should be very proud of that. Well done, you know, brilliant, absolutely. But you know, how do we get it out to these other countries? Because one of the things that it's not a criticism, but there is this, that from UNWTO's point of view, there's a lot of focus on these developed member countries. How do you get this to the remotest and the poorest of nations? This is the challenge, because you need the political will now. And then there are distractions, like the pandemic right now is a huge distraction for governments. A lot of funding is being diverted towards healthcare, for example. So yeah, it's a huge challenge, and how do you overcome that?
Sumaira, that's why we have you. So what we're trying to do is, of course, inside the UNWTO investment strategy, we're focused on 4 lines of action. The first one is about guidelines and reports. The second one is about working with the multilaterals, because of course, working with the World Bank, EBRD, IFC, IDB, CAF, among others, will help us to improve the way investments can go through that green path. Third of all, of course, creating an investment network in order to connect investors with governments. And last but not least, this is a new service that is about law innovation, or innovating law, to help governments on what we're talking about. Of course, if you want to create a new law, if you want to create a new regulation, we are here because we know pretty well how to do so. The thing is that we need to act really fast if we want to create a mature regulation where the private sector can have incentives, and on the other hand, where people and the society can have benefits from those tourism incentives. What I don't want to do is to promote investments by promoting, and then when you talk to me about the impact or in the society or in vulnerable areas, we don't know what's about. So that's why our commitment today regarding green investments and sustainable investments is to help countries to regulate a little bit better, not for bad, for helping entrepreneurs, for helping the private sector to rebound the sector, but with a more consciousness and with a more responsibility of what they're doing.
Amazing, just amazing, Natalia. So that then brings me to my last question, which is I would segue on what you have just now said, and that what is the future of organizations as UNWTO or World Tourism Forum Institute, and the relevance to the state of tourism as it is today? Are we less or more relevant? What do we as organizations need to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I think that we cannot think as Robinson Crusoe. We are not alone in the world. So to me, multilateralism is the way to promote a better understanding for a more peaceful world and for a more sustainable governance, and of course, for a more conscious leadership. It doesn't matter if it's in tourism or not. So what I can see today is that the more coherent and the more coordinated we are with the countries, the better. Our challenge as international organizations is not to lead. I think to lead, to advise, and to regulate is there. What we need is, of course, to go into the ground and to help that those opportunities are there to react and to promote this really well in terms of developing a new way and a new understanding of how the economics and the economic development can empower better the people, and through public policies you can activate all the new outbounds through youth and of course through the sustainable development goals.
Oh, thank you so much, Natalia. That just really brings us towards the end of this interview. So that That's just incredible that some of the points that you have touched upon. So you saying is multilateralism is critical to me. That's about collaboration that no one country can do alone. And it's also collaboration between organizations like ours, to expand our reach, to expand and share knowledge and to share best practices. I think that's just critical in today's time and period. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate. Any last message you want to share?
Thank you so much, Sumaira. It's my pleasure to be here today with you once again. And of course, it's in our hands. This is, Sumaira, the sector of women. This is the sector of youth.
Absolutely. We haven't even talked about it, the gender equality and so much. I think that will require another meeting.
It will be taken in another interview where I interview you,
Thank
you. Let's do so. But it's in our hands. We have a very positive economic sector. It's the most human economic sector. It's in our hands. If we want to lead with responsibility, a better future for our young, talented minds. If we want to mind the gender equality, we have the opportunity to do so. So I would like to encourage all the people that are listening to us to commit on tourism innovation, education, and of course, investments. That's the way to promote a more modern and of course, a more sustainable economic sector.
Thank you so much. On that note, because I want to keep on talking to you, keep on listening to you. So proud of the work you are doing. Just keep going, girl. Keep going. And I say thank you to you one more time. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.